All right, we're going to look at commas with introductory phrases and clauses. And I want to look at the lesson. So this is specifically looking at when you have a phrase at the beginning of a sentence that needs to have a comma separating it from the rest of the sentence. And so what they've told you here is that when a clause or phrase starts a sentence, they often require a reader to pause before moving on. So when you have a phrase, when the first word of the sentence is this type of a verb that ends in ing, you're always going to need a comma to separate it because there's a natural pause there. So it's a gerund phrase, actually. So running at top speed, comma, Jean chased down the school bus. And then we have during the night, comma, Lindsay dreamed she saw a UFO. The best way that I can tell you to learn this is just to hear the rhythm of that kind of a sentence and recognize it's called a gerund phrase because when you have a verb and it's put in the form with ing, it's called a gerund. It's not a normal kind of verb. Sometimes it's a noun. I'm not even going to try to explain that right now. Because he enjoys music. Now, remember with the word because, if we would put it at the end of the sentence, Sean bought tickets to the orchestra because he enjoys music, we would not have separated with a comma. But when we put it at the beginning of the sentence, this phrase, this because phrase, we do need a comma to separate it from the rest. So we have a gerund phrase, we have a prepositional phrase because during is telling us when something's happened. It's not being used as a verb or a gerund. And then because is a subordinate clause because it requires explanation. So this is also a prepositional phrase. Jennifer hid her lucky marbles in the bushes, but we don't need a comma because it's following. Sometimes that's not the case because sometimes in the middle of the sentence is being used to introduce the thing after it. I don't know, it's kind of confusing, but they're not going to do that to you here. All right, so do not use the comma if no pause is necessary. So Magnus enjoys running at top speed. Lindsay dreamed she saw a UFO during the night. When they're phrased this way and they're not introductory clauses, they don't need commas. Sean bought tickets to orchestra because he enjoys music. So use the comma to tell readers when they need to pause. After the long discussion, comma, the knitting club had finally planned the bake sale. The knitting club finally planned the bake sale after long discussion does not need a comma. Let's go ahead and look at the practice if it will let me. We'll go to the quiz. All right, jogging through the park. We have a gerund phrase here at the beginning. This is telling us an action that's happening somewhere, but what needs to be, it's modifying something. Mufasa waved to everyone he saw. It's modifying where Mufasa was when he was waving to everyone that he saw. You do need a comma. In the dentist waiting room, so this is one of those prepositional phrases because in tells us where something's happening, but we don't know what's happening there yet. So there's a pause because it's at the beginning of the sentence. I ride my scooter past Draco Malfoy's comic book store on the way to school. On the way to school is a prepositional phrase. It tells us where something's happening, but we don't need the comma because it's at the end of the sentence. Professor Moody's cat loves swimming in the kiddie pool. This sort of a gerund phrase is not an introductory clause, and so we're not going to use a comma. And the actor signed autographs for Harry Potter and his friends. There's nothing here that would require a comma. Slurping her chicken noodle soup is one of our gerund phrases because slurping is an ing verb. It's not telling us where when something's happening. And it's being used to introduce the sentence, so it would need the comma. I'm hoping that that will do it for you guys and that you'll be able to figure this out with that much of instruction. You should see the word after. It's telling us when something's happening. And so you should see that you'd need the comma there. So anyways, that's how you do commas with introductory phrases and clauses. If you need any more help with it, of course, let me know.